2021, was it the best season you've seen? Now, my argument was yes, at least in a generation. Some of you said no, but I think most of us concluded it was up there. Maybe my team specifically wasn't good, and that's made me jaded towards 2021, but it was up there. Well, let me take you back to August. This is how I choose to view a season in totality. Don't look back on it. Take everything that happened, and then go back to talk to yourself in August and imagine if you told yourself all of the things that will end up coming to fruition. I don't think some of you are aware of how many boxes on your proverbial wish list were checked this year in college football. A lot of you were tired of the staleness. Of course, we all wanted crowds back and we all wanted the game day experience, but some of you wanted a change at the top. Some of you wanted parity. Some of you wanted a more evenly competitive, balanced sport, and you wanted some new blood. Do you realize you got all of it? Like, think about this. So I was looking on Twitter this morning, and one of our buddies, Andrew Percival, part of the Stay at 4 movement, by the way, 4 and no more, he tweeted out something to this effect. And I looked at it and said, true, 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 true. Think about some of these things that happened. First off, go back to preview magazine season. Do you remember how much of a foregone conclusion it was that you already knew the playoff field? How many times did you hear people say, well, I already know Ohio State's going to be there, and Clemson's going to be there, and Alabama's going to be there, and then Oklahoma. Oklahoma was the preseason number 1. Do you remember how much of a foregone conclusion it was that those teams were just going to buzzsaw their way, and the season wasn't really going to start until the playoff? Clemson, nowhere to be found. Ohio State, nowhere to be found. Oklahoma, nowhere to be found. Not only that, guys, none of them even played for a conference championship. Go find me odds on that from August. If I were to tell you nothing more, as a matter of fact, in August, then OU and Ohio State and Clemson, they're not even going to play for their conference championships. You would have said, game on. You would have said, wow, this thing's about to be crazy. And it was. Then what if I followed it up and I said, hold it, not done yet. G5 team's going to make the playoff. You would have said, wake me up, I'm dreaming. So you're telling me all the big boys are going to fall, not even play for a conference title, and now you're telling me a G5 team's going to make the playoff? I don't even care who it is. You'd probably assume Cincinnati, and you would have been right. I don't even care who it is, though. Yeah, all the big boys are going to fall, and so the giant cedars are going to be toppled, and then a former little sapling is going to rise up. And I would have said, yeah, that's absolutely what's happening. In August, this would have totally freaked you out. But you got conditioned to the possibility as the year went on, and so it felt a little sanitized when you ended up getting it. That's why you need to view it from the perspective of August. Then, what if I were to tell you, I'm still not done? Someone's going to win a national championship who has not done it in this millennium. Someone is going to end a multi-decade drought in winning a national championship. Now, you may have guessed Georgia. You may have. Or you may have guessed at that point Michigan, because if I were to have told you Ohio State's not even going to win the Big Ten or play for the Big Ten title, you assume, okay, well, everything's in play. Now, maybe it's Penn State. Who knows who it is? Maybe it's Texas. It ends up being Georgia. This was a multi-decade drought that just got ended. Now, you may look at him and say, oh, big deal, Georgia's a powerhouse. Guys, I hadn't won a title since the early 80s. It's a huge deal. You wanted a shakeup. You wanted that trophy going somewhere other than Clemson, South Carolina, or Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Well, it did. And it did in the same year that the other big boys, aside from Bama, didn't even make the playoff, and a G5 team did, but we're still not done. Do you remember how great this regular season was? This regular season was off the charts. The state of Michigan alone is like a perfect promotional billboard for how great this regular season was. Think about Michigan State. Over/under preseason win total, 4, 4.5, and they go into the Ohio State game already, I think, with 9 wins. They end up a double-digit win team, and Michigan State were at the game. We were at the Michigan game when they upset Michigan, and they stormed the field, and it was an incredible experience in East Lansing. There was so much weight that was lifted off the shoulders there. It's not that they hadn't done it in a long time, but it's that this was packaged with sort of a new era there, and it was the Mel Tucker era. This was not a year they were supposed to be able to do that. They beat Michigan in a year where Michigan ended up going to the playoff. Like, how crazy is that? Which brings me to my next point. Yeah, Michigan State had a great year. Dude, Michigan went to the playoff. The state of Michigan just in and of itself had its own little mini Renaissance season within the larger aspect of a Renaissance season. Michigan State and Michigan were about as good as college football regular season this year got. Now, it got to a point where, Michigan State runs up on Ohio State, and they're very ill-equipped to deal with that speed in the secondary. Michigan runs up on Georgia. They can't handle the physicality. That doesn't take away from how incredible the regular season was. Like, no one who was in the house, you're watching the B-roll right now, I think that's from the iJosh. I shot this. That's at the big house. That is Ohio State and Michigan. We got the snow coming down sideways, and those folks finally exorcised the demons, and they stormed the field. It took forever to get out of there. Do you think they forgot that because they couldn't beat the University of Georgia? I think everyone just said, oh, well, Etch-a-Sketch, just erase that memory from my mind. Like, it doesn't matter to me anymore. No one thinks like that. It was incredible. Also, we're not done yet. Yeah, we're not done. As incredible as that was, for those of you who still didn't have enough new blood in the conversation, need I take you to the ACC? Need I take you to the Pac-12? Because that's where we got two brand new conference champions. In the ACC, yeah, Clemson didn't play for the title. Well, that means two unfamiliar programs did, right? Wasn't Miami either. It was Pitt and it was Wake Forest. And by the way, Pitt makes it there on the strength of a Heisman Trophy finalist in Kenny Pickett, and they win the ACC. And Utah just skull drags Oregon not once but twice to win the Pac-12. I don't know how much more people wanted. When I asked the other day, was this one of the most incredible seasons or the most incredible in the modern era, a lot of you said, oh, no, I don't think so. What more did you want? I didn't even mention Baylor. Baylor came out of nowhere, led by a coach that I think is headed towards stardom in this sport. And you look around and you're like, what more did you want? Did you get fooled by the playoff? I think you did. I think some people are still struggling with properly defining the value of a season, and they're waiting for the playoff. And I'm telling you, you ought to define the value of a season before the playoff even begins. Define it, because we define the value of college football seasons by what the regular seasons bring us. Look at that. G5 team makes the playoff. Clemson, Oklahoma, Ohio State, nowhere to be found. You got a team that hasn't won titles in multiple decades winning one. You got the state of Michigan, just a microcosm, state of Michigan. I could expand well beyond there. You got Utah winning the Pac-12. You got Pitt winning the ACC. 2021 was incredible, and you'd be hard-pressed to convince me otherwise.